Welcome back to Savvy Organics Farm with Chicks and Chickens 101. Today we're going to talk about brooders and how do you keep those chickens, what do you keep them in when you get home. So I'm going to take you over here and show you. First thing is these water troughs like this make great place for probably up to 15, 20, maybe even 25 birds for a short period of time. You would want shavings in the bottom of that and plenty of food and water, which we'll talk about more in a minute. You can also keep them in a box, one of those storage crates in the house. Now what we have, which we have our American breast chicks in here right now that are almost ready to go outside, is we have this 4x8 chicken brooder. We can change out the light bulb in there to for either just daylight once they're fully feathered, or to a heat lamp when it's cold and we need to keep them warm. So a brooder like this works really well. This panel in the center, this is removable, so we can take this out and expand it into the full 4x8 for whatever number of birds that we happen to have at the time. On your brooder, whether it's a brooder that's a box like this one that we've built or something else, we just need to make sure that they have plenty of airflow. Ventilation is critically important for your chickens. So each side of this brooder has a screen on the top, and then the sides and the back have this same hardware cloth screen. So we get plenty of airflow through there just to make sure that they're not getting wet from perspiration and from respiration. Another option, we made this one over here. We made this one out of cattle panels, hardware cloth, and some plastic wire and some bird netting. So we just cut a panel up, and this is in our barn. This one is roughly 4x8 as well, and that's where we usually keep our intermediate birds when they're just before they're ready to go outside. So we'll take them from our brooder that we keep chicks in, and at about 8 to 12 weeks, they will go in here, depending on their size and activity, and then from there, they're ready to go out on grass. All right, so let's talk a little bit about feeders for your birds. There's these that are tried and true. They come in metal, plastic. These feeders right here are ideal for feeding chicks. Chicks that are less than about 6, 8 weeks old, something like that, all the way from 3-day-old chicks to just a couple of weeks old. So that's ideal for feeding those birds. There's one that's very similar. It's for a little bit older birds. They're for pullets typically. They still have these little channels where they can just get their head in there. The problem with these that we have found is the chickens tend to pull them over. They're not stable enough. So not a great fan of these guys. Another one is these type feeders, the type feeders that have the container that holds the feed and these slots down here where the feed comes through and feeds through. Typically, these work really well for from normal grain, for natural grain, and some pelleted feeds, but they don't work really good for some of the chick starters that are more powdery. They just tends to clog up around the edge, and you just have to shake it like that to get that out. So those work pretty well. For your older birds, the old tried and true metal feeder, similar to the last one I just showed you, except it just has a big metal container, and it has a trough down here at the bottom that the feed comes out underneath, and it's adjustable on the sides with 3 options there. So you just adjust each one of those for however much feed needs to be coming out. Some people will feed them just in rubber pans. We do, which we'll see in a little bit, we soak feed and feed it to our chickens every day. So just feed pans will work. But if you're leaving this out for them to eat just their normal everyday feed, and this is what you're using, you just have to clean it out almost every day because they will get in it, they will scratch, they will manure in there and waste some of the feed. So those are all great options for feeding chickens, and we're going to walk out to one of our coops in the field and I'll show you an even better option, especially for anything from pullets to your adult chickens. So out here in our chicken tractors, this is one of my favorite feeders that has worked very, very well for many years. It is a 5-foot piece of PVC with caps on each end, and it is a 2 1/4 inch slot cut in that PVC all the way across there. And what this does is it allows the birds to get their head in there and get the feed that they want, but they can't scratch in it and waste the feed. So if you're feeding out of pans and some of the other feeders where they can actually reach the feed with their feet, they'll scratch and they'll waste a ton of food. But that PVC feeder is easy to make. We have ours on these little wood blocks to hold it in place on the ground and keep it stable. Some people will actually suspend them from the top of their coop with a chain, and that way they don't have to move it. We just prefer them on the ground, so it works just fine.